Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder if that powerful AI tool you are using for school is actually helping you learn, or just making things easier in a way that might hurt you later? Well, this new study might have a clue. We all know generative AI tools like ChatGPT are everywhere now. Especially in schools, you can ask them to explain stuff, write essays, or even solve problems. But the big question is, how are students actually using these tools? Are they using them to truly understand the material, or just to get a quick answer and be done with it? Researchers noticed that most studies just count how often students use AI. And this is the key part, just how often doesn't tell us how they're using it. Imagine two students using AI the same amount, but one is asking follow-up questions and really digging in, while the other just copies and pastes. They're using the same tool, but doing completely different work, right? So this research wanted to see if the way students use AI is more important for their grades and their confidence than just how much they use it. They figured out that maybe there are two main ways students interact with AI output. One way where they really use it to help them understand things better, and another way where they use it as a kind of shortcut, without checking things too much. They call these evaluative integration, or AI for short, and low verification uptake, or LVU. To figure this out, the researchers first talked to students to understand how they use AI. Based on those chats, they created questions about different AI using behaviors. They then had over 100 university students answer these questions. They used a fancy statistical technique called exploratory factor analysis, which is basically a way to group similar answers together to see if there are underlying patterns. And guess what? They found two clear patterns. One pattern, EI, was all about students who used AI to ask more questions, revise what the AI gave them, check sources, and blend AI ideas with their own research. The other pattern, LVU, was for students who tended to rely on the AI's answers with just a little bit of changes at all, and didn't bother checking sources much. They then looked at how these patterns related to things that matter for students, their actual grades measured by their GPA, and their academic self-efficacy, which is basically how confident they feel about their ability to succeed in school. They also included the simple frequency of use, measured to see if it told the same story. Here's where it gets really interesting. They found that students who used AI in the evaluative integration way, the AI group actually tended to have better academic performance. On the flip side, students who used AI for low verification uptake, the LVU group, tended to have worse academic performance. This makes sense, right? If you are using AI to deepen your understanding, it is probably helping you learn. If you are just using it to get answers quickly, you might be missing out on the learning process itself. But it wasn't just about direct effects on grades. They also looked at academic self-efficacy. For the AI group, it seemed like using AI to support understanding boosted their confidence in their academic abilities. And that increased confidence then helped their performance. It was like AI built up their self-belief, which in turn helped their grades. For the LVU group, it was a bit different. Using AI as a shortcut not only hurt their grades directly, but it also lowered their confidence in their own abilities. It is like they were thinking, I am relying on this AI, so maybe I am not actually that good at this myself. Now, what about frequency? Remember how most studies just look at how often students use AI? Well, in this study, just how often students used AI didn't seem to predict their grades or their confidence at all. This is a pretty big deal. It suggests that focusing only on frequency might be missing the real story. They also explored if using AI more often made the EA or LVU patterns have an even bigger effect. In one test, it looked like using AI more frequently really did boost confidence. But when they put all the pieces together in a more complete picture, that interaction effect wasn't as strong, and it wasn't found at all for the LVU pattern. This part of the study was a bit more complex, and they considered it provisional, meaning it needs more research to be sure. The big takeaway from this research is that how students use generative AI tools is far more important than how often they use them. It is not about banning AI or telling students to use it less. It is about encouraging them to use it in ways that actually help them learn and build their skills, rather than just getting by. This research is like a wake-up call for educators and for us as students. It suggests we need better ways to measure how students are interacting with AI, moving beyond just asking how often do you use it. And it points towards teaching methods that encourage that evaluative integration, the kind of use that helps students think critically, question, and build their own understanding. Imagine assignments where students have to show how they used AI, what they checked, what they changed, and why. That could be a game changer. Now, A quick look at how they did this. They came up with a bunch of statements about how students use AI. Some examples were like, when using Genai for coursework, I usually rely on the response it produces, which sounds like LVU, or when Genai provides information for coursework, I check it against other sources or materials, which sounds like AI students rated how often they did these things. They crunched those numbers, and as we talked about, they found those two main patterns, A and LVU. A had items about asking follow-up questions, revising, combining ideas, and checking sources. LVU had items about relying on the AI's answer with minimal changes and trusting its sources without consulting others. Interestingly, the two patterns, AI and LVU, weren't really related to each other. You could be high in one and not the other, or low in both, or high in both. This means they're likely measuring different things, not just two sides of the same coin. They did find that students who used AI more frequently tended to report doing both EI and LVU. So, more use meant more of both helpful and less helpful ways of interacting with AI. But again, that frequency itself didn't link to grades or confidence. This part of the results is all about testing those indirect associations. We mentioned, for EI, the study found that it boosted academic self-efficacy and that boosted performance. When they accounted for self-efficacy, the direct link between EI and performance disappeared. This suggests that the main way EI helps is by making students feel more capable, which then leads to better results. For LVU, it was more complicated. Using AI in a low verification way not only directly hurt performance, but it also lowered self-efficacy, which then further hurt performance. So LVU had a negative impact on grades, both directly and indirectly, by chipping away at students' confidence. As we touched on before, they looked at whether frequency amplified the effects of EA and LVU. In one specific test, it seemed like more frequent use of EA really did make that positive link with self-efficacy even stronger. It is like the more you use AI in a good way, the more confident you become. However, when they put everything together, this significant inaction faded, and they didn't see any moderation effect for LVU. They concluded that these moderation findings were tentative. So, what does this all mean for us? It means the next time you are using AI for your schoolwork, think about how you are using it. Are you treating it like a tutor that helps you explore and understand, or like a vending machine that just spits out answers? The research strongly suggests that the tutor approach, the EI approach, is linked to better grades and feeling more capable. Now, it is important to remember that no study is perfect. The researchers themselves pointed out some limitations. For example, they tested their findings in the same group of students who helped them create the questions, which isn't ideal. They also mentioned that maybe EEA isn't just about how you use AI, but could also be related to general traits like being conscientious or self-regulated. And, of course, the sample was from just one university, so it might not apply to everyone everywhere. Also, GPA was used as a measure of performance, and sometimes GPAs can be quite similar across students, making it harder to see big differences. The biggest practical takeaway is about how we measure AI use. We really need to move beyond just counting how often students use AI and start looking at the specific ways they engage with it. Developing better tools to measure these patterns is crucial for future research and for understanding the real impact of AI in education. For educators, this means we need to think about how to design learning experiences that encourage that evaluative integration. It is not enough to just tell students to use AI responsibly. We might need to actively design tasks that require them to document their AI use, like showing what they checked, what they revised, and why they made certain choices. This would force them to engage more deeply. Scroll conclusion frequency indicated how often students reported using Genai, but not how they handled its output funds. Scroll ultimately, this study shows us that generative AI is a tool, and like any tool, its impact depends on how we wield it. Using AI to truly understand and build your skills can be beneficial, boosting both your grades and your confidence. But using it as a shortcut can undermine your learning and your self-belief. So, the next time you fire up ChatGPT, ask yourself not how often, but how am I really using this? What are your thoughts on this? Do you find yourself falling into the AI or LVU pattern more often? Let me know in the comments below, and if you found this breakdown helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more science stories. We'll see you in the next video.